Hey y'all, welcome to the Medicinal Melange podcast. I'm Elizabeth, a clinical herbalist, medical astrologer, and the friend that won't let you gaslight yourself out of your own brilliance. This is where we take the guesswork out of your wellness journey and take back your autonomy in healing your body, aligning with your chart, and shedding light on your highest self's actual timeline, not the one capitalism tries to rush you through. If you're into no BS astrology, radical self-honesty, and levels of devotion to yourself you were told were too much, you're in the right place. So I was listening back to a few episodes, and I know that I started every week with the astrology ahead, and I was like, oh, I've been so deep in this wondering what's going on kind of moment where I'm not sure even what day it is. Between being busy and being stressed and then also being pressed because of the holiday season. I mean, thank God for calendars and reminders because I'm sure I'd forget everything. So I was listening back to a few episodes and I realized that I've been such in this moment of like talking about astrology in a real life sort of way and less about like, here is the structure and here is how you do this, right? Which I love that it's resonating with everybody. But I also was like, oh, aside from talking about astrology within the episode and like this astrological kind of transit creates this energy and this energy, stuff like that, I haven't talked about like, hey, here's the astrology for the week ahead. So I realized this because we had Mercury moving into Sagittarius, which Sagittarius is a mutable sign. And anytime things are in a mutable sign, it's kind of like missing items. Things are lost, there's mistakes, right? There's more mistakes. This is especially true for Mercury, for Uranus, for even Mars a little bit. These are signatures that will create like, no. And so this Wednesday, as I was writing this episode, I was like, not only have I been all like, because of Mercury retrograde, like we came out of retrograde and everything fast forwarded in my life very quickly. So, as I was looking at the signature and with Mercury moving into Sagittarius, I was like, shit, it's been like 2 weeks. Even though I have this episode written, it's been 2 weeks of me editing it down. It's been 2 weeks of me forgetting a lot of things. What day is it? What time is it? Where do I have to be? Obviously, I have a lot of help at home right now, but, people are in schools and I'm trying to organize everyone's schedules. So I don't know if it was Mercury going direct and everything hyper fast forwarding, or if I've been, with my schedule just being very booked. I'm getting lots of orders for holiday items. I had a huge sale. Thank you to everybody that participated in that. Or even if you just bought from me this season, I really always appreciate it. I'm able to help support my family. I'm able to help my children get into, one is going to be going to makeup school, but I'm like on a payment plan. I'm like everybody else, right? With people losing their jobs, obviously I'm having to like big time connect on that end. But I was sitting here because a big amount of news, but also like what if? And I was like, should I talk about this? And I always like to pull a card in the background of to put next to me as I film this podcast episode. And I pulled the King of Cups. And so for me, just in an intuitive way, it was like, no, share this because maybe you can be this supportive voice through all of this that is needed for somebody else, because I know we are all about to go through some really like shitty times. And that's not to say that it has anything to do necessarily with 2026. And in a minute, when I explain myself, you'll definitely know that. But I mean, shitty in we're going to have to start making choices, but all of these choices are helping us very fucking quickly, astrologically, end December, and like, okay, we have the facts. What is the decision? Let's move forward. So for the astrology this past week, like I said, Mercury was moving into Sagittarius. This is like losing your keys, misplacing things, not being really aware of time, mistakes. Maybe you like live in an icier area and you were like very slippery feet. Baby giraffe on ice. But as we go into tomorrow, we have Mars squaring Neptune, and this is really careless energy. And especially if you have these mutable signs, because Neptune is in Pisces, you want to, and it's at the end of Pisces, you want to be very aware of this careless energy. Now, this is very important for me personally because my sun and Mercury are at 29 degrees Virgo. And so I need to be very aware to be extra paying attention. Thankfully, because I bought a car for my business and everything like that, I call it the spaceship car. Like I press a button and it self-drives, and I press another button and it make sure that I don't get too close to other cars. So like it automatically accelerates or like brakes and stuff like that. I don't know. I was thinking about leaning into the robot and letting it kind of take over a little bit more tomorrow, because tomorrow specifically is going to be all about kind of sloppy drivers, making careless mistakes just because we're trying to rush through. Now, if you think about it, we are what, 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away from, in America, I would assume the biggest holiday. I don't really know, but yeah, I'd assume it's the biggest holiday. And yeah, there's just a lot, right? We're really not thinking about these things. During the holidays, I've known a lot of elders over the years that during holiday season, they say, no, I park as far away as possible from stores and I will walk the extra time to go forward because people are just so careless. And so you get hit, as they're pulling into a spot or something like that. So that's for tomorrow, the 14th. Side note, I'll be at Deja Vu Esoterica tomorrow. Today, I'm actually going to the Stinking Rose. I will be there from 12 to about 4. And I say about on all of these dates in December because some days I'm flooded with walk-ins, and y'all know me. I will stay until everybody is seen and they get the clarity they need. So if it's like 3:30 and you're like, she leaves at 4. No, I will leave after you get your insight. So come on down. So yeah, I'll be at the Stinking Rose today, but tomorrow when people are a little bit more careless, I would still love to see your beautiful face, and you should definitely come down to Deja Vu Esoterica tomorrow because that's why I read every Sunday. And even though people are careless, that doesn't mean everybody's careless, and it just means we have to be a little bit more aware of what's going on. So astrologically, the things that are kind of standing out to me, you want to make sure that, well, also Mars tomorrow goes into Capricorn. So this is going to be really good if you are strength building. So if you are doing any sort of working out tomorrow, the gains are going to be a little bit better than they were, let's say, last weekend. So love that for you if that's your journey. But as far as Mars squaring Neptune, it's really important that we work with alternative herbs on this day. And that is because it is triggering an eclipse from September. Because remember, that's at like 29 degrees. That Neptune is at 29 degrees, which is where we had the eclipse on September 21st. Normally, I am not that great at remembering exact dates on the fly like this. However, it was the day before my birthday, and I was like, great, I turned 40 under more or less an eclipse. So it was my lunar return, or excuse me, my solar return that day too. So we want to make sure that we are paying attention to helping our blood, our circulation, our digestion move things out. So alternative herbs are a great herb to incorporate over the next few days into, I personally use it every day, but into your diet, into your daily routine as much as possible. My favorite blend that I make is the Alisir blend. This is very stimulating. It has spicy aromatic herbs and it gets all of the circulation moving. So then it's able to take out any sort of free radicals or bullshit in your system and help it move out of your vessel quickly. Now, next week, I feel like is really important, especially for anywhere you have Scorpio, because we have the moon in Scorpio. So that's going to be a little bit more emotional in whatever house this regulates. So for me, it's probably going to be emotional around my voice and my message and how I speak to myself. But also it's squaring Pluto. Now, Pluto is in Aquarius, but Pluto rules over Scorpio. So this is deep Scorpio energy. You are going to be a little bit more, and it's a balsamic moon. So this is going to be a little bit more of a depressive energy next week. Mars is in Capricorn, Moon is in Scorpio, so basically like Sunday to Thursday, it's going to feel extra wet, extra heavy. I kind of explain it like when you put a towel in water and it's soaking wet, and that towel goes from lightweight to the heaviest thing you ever held. That kind of is the Scorpio energy. But I just want to remind you that Scorpio energy to me, it kind of embodies Persephone's journey. We go to the depths, right? She walks down into the underworld. She goes to the depths. She explores herself. She understands herself, okay? Because we're going to the depths of our subconscious during heavy Scorpio periods and Scorpio energy. But when we come up out of it, so like next week, we're going to have more downloads. We're going to have more awareness. And really, we never come back the same anytime there's this heavy energetic period. And the reason why is because we're out there doing the shadow work. You got that heavy, dark balsamic moon. You got that heavy Scorpio energy. You have heavy Pluto energy, which rules over Scorpio. So this is going to be heavier energy. Now, on the 16th, we have a grand trine in water. Now, a grand trine, if you know a trine, I always think of a triangle if you're not connecting the words. In the middle of a chart, there's reds and blues most of the time, unless you like change the color. But reds are like harsh aspects that maybe aren't flowing as easily. Blues are easier aspects that flow pretty well. Trines are really good at flowing, right? It's a triangle. It's an easy kind of flow of energy. But when you get a grand trine, especially with the Scorpio energy, it kind of becomes a whirlpool. It like sucks us in. It's so easy flowing that now it's become very strong. And so I kind of thought of like this like whirlpool of emotions that you might have coming out. Now, with that said, there's lovely benefits of herbs like mimosa to lighten the heart. I love to work with blue cohosh specifically. Black cohosh is great too if you're in that menopausal kind of moving and grooving stages. Doesn't really matter which stage. I'm just going to put a blanket term there. I also love my Tranquillium blend, which is passion flower, because it helps realign the nervous system. But if I'm trying to go for a lighter heart, I'm going to be reaching for that mimosa. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about next week. There's other astrology that I want to look at, sure. But for the most part, I'm just trying to get through that beginning portion of the week where we have that heavy Scorpio energy. Going back to kind of what I was mentioning in the beginning of like, hey, I got this thing on my chest. This is my fucking podcast. I can do whatever I want. But do I want to talk about it? Or is this something I don't want to talk about? And honestly, like 4 people know in general in my life. So I'm going for 4 people or from 4 people to anybody who listens to this. But I did pull the King of Cups card. And the King of Cups card, the water is all wavy and turbulent, tumultuous. I don't know what word you would use, but it's moving. It's agitated. But the king sits on this concrete cement slab, showing that, and it's cups. Cups rules emotion. So anytime you see cups, we want to think, okay, what's the emotional component here? And as the king is sitting on the cement, that foundation is not shaking. It's not worried about it. There's nothing splashing up. He is just sitting there holding rulership, holding the little like staff, and then holding a cup and not really worried about it. Is looking away into the future. At least that's always how I've seen it. So we are looking to the future, but for the most part, I feel like King of Cups is like, hey, you got this emotionally. So go ahead and talk about it. So here's what's going on with me. And my hope is by sharing this, that if you are having maybe not a similar thing, because I know I won't be the only one, but I know that this is very random, but you might be one of the many people that come January 1st is losing their insurance like I am. And you all know where I stand with capitalism. You all know where I stand with the insurance companies. I mean, I had insurance through teaching when my daughter was sick. And then I had Medicaid once I, left my job because I needed to spend more time with her. But it was fighting tooth and nail every day. I was calling doctors because they're not, they don't, there's no urgency for them to get this information to you. They're doing their job, and their job is honestly to treat, to diagnose, to look at. It is very unfortunate that y'all have to, because I have many clients that are everything from surgeons to, head of departments, all of this. I have many, many, many medical professional people that listen to this, but also to this podcast, but also to that are clients. And I hate that y'all have to deal with insurance too. Right? Like you're doing your things on the back end, or at least, somebody under you is. But yeah, so I was able to have insurance under the Affordable Care Act. This is something that I had not had insurance in 10 years, probably. I mean, as long as I've had my business, right? And I don't know. I was very excited to have insurance. And I went to my first doctor's visit and I was like, hey, I have insurance. Woo! I'm going to get a physical because you have to get like this yearly checkup. Okay, so I show up. He didn't do anything. Like I had a mole that I wanted to look at, and it wasn't until he was almost out the door that I was like, hey, by the way, can you look at this? Because I did this thing where I showed up with my cell phone and I was like, here's all of the things I've been writing down on my notes app. And can we talk about this? He was like, we cannot talk about any of that. You have to set up different appointments for each one. I was like, well, that's a waste of money. So what do we talk about? He was like, yeah, it's just me, like basically seeing, hey, you're here, you're human. And I was like, cool. So this is a once a year thing for me to do nothing, to get help with nothing. I go, well, here's the thing. I need to get into a neurologist because I'm epileptic and I have a seizure disorder. However, I've not had medicine in many years, and I've been doing my best to maintain with herbs. And I was also telling him that it doesn't work all the time, but that's just the life that I've grown accustomed to. I still have seizures. They're just a little less. Okay, cool. So get me into a neurologist, and I have this mass in my breast that I've known about for a while, but I just want to double check and make sure it's okay. So can you schedule me for a mammogram? He was like, yes. And I told him, I was like, they've always done an ultrasound, so I need a mammogram plus ultrasound. And he was like, okay, cool. So it takes like 4 weeks for nobody to call me back. I called them back at about 3 weeks and was like, hey, I'm supposed to have this mammogram. I called the neurologist too, but the number's wrong. It was annoying. So I called the mammogram place. I was like, hey, it's been like 3 weeks. Y'all going to call me? By this time, it is October, beginning of October. We're like right after my birthday. They say, yes, we can get you in for a mammogram, but there's no ultrasound here. So you have to call your doctor to get an ultrasound. I was like, okay, but can you just like make the appointment? I'll call him after this, but can you get me for that appointment? They were like, sure, we'll do it, but you're not going to get an ultrasound. Okay, fine. So I do it. The doctor takes 3 weeks to put in, actually more like 5, because after I got the ultrasound and mammogram, he called me, or his assistant called me and was like, oh, we put in for an ultrasound. So why that is important after the moment is unclear to me. And I was like, I've already had the thing. But anyway, back to the beginning. So I called, I requested an ultrasound. I'm just praying that they put in the ultrasound by the time my appointment is, because they booked me 5 weeks out. I have to wait 5 weeks plus for an ultrasound. So I get in for an ultrasound on December 8th. So from early October to December 8th, that is the soonest I could get an ultrasound. I go in for the ultrasound, or excuse me, for the mammogram. They do a mammogram. I'm like, hey, my right breast has this lump. It's been here forever, but I have very fibrous breasts. I've already had them gutted. I have a history. I need y'all to check out, make sure that these are okay. Well, I've already had biopsies on them, but just want to make sure that I'm not feeling anything new. They're like, great. They do they do the mammogram. Then they go, hey, we're going to call you back for the ultrasound. We have a radiation dude on staff. He'll tell you in real time what's going on. Great. So that's when I knew Not because my doctor called me and went, by the way, I put in that ultrasound like you asked for 5 weeks ago. I found out in the moment. Then they start ultrasound, like you on the ultrasound, they normally hit the areas. They go, okay, point to where area in your breast, you feel this lump. I go, hey, by the way, Aaron felt a lump on this part of my breast. Can you look at that? Yep, totally. We saw it in the mammogram. It's at the skin level. I'm like, great. And they're like, but this cluster over here is what we're concerned about. And they were like, that I could tell they weren't trying to like alarm me, but they were trying to make it like, you need to get this checked immediately type of energy. And we always need to, but obviously they've seen my chart, they've seen my history. And yeah, I was kind of like, oh, because they're doing the ultrasound. I was like, why are they ultrasounding? That's like my whole left breast. I was talking about my right, And I was like, well, maybe that's just part of it. No, they saw something in the mammogram. So that was December 8th or so, whatever day that Monday is. I think it's the 8th. It is now the 13th. I told them, because they said, hey, you have to get this biopsied. Like, these are the areas, the lumps that we're concerned about. You have to get them biopsied. I was like, cool. Here's the thing. I lose my insurance January 1st. And so I need everybody to run. We're not waiting 8 weeks for a mammogram again or a biopsy. So the soonest they can get me in is December 22nd. It takes 3 to 5 business days to get my results back, which puts it at the earliest on Christmas. Now, my PCP couldn't even be bothered to actually talk to me about things that I wanted to talk about during the initial. And it took him like 10 weeks, whatever, not 10 weeks, but I'm allowed to be a little dramatic, okay? It takes 10 weeks to get back to me about this fucking mammogram. So you think he's going to hit me up on Christmas or bother? Like, no, not a thing, not bothered. So then I was like, well, I've been calling his office. Do you think you can write him a note? Like, if he can look on the 20th, I've made an appointment just in case. I was like, oh yeah, I need an appointment for the soonest available between the 23rd in hopes that maybe I can like talk to the people at the biopsy place and be like, I need these results ASAP. So I'm going to shoot my shot, but that's all I can really do. And it sucks. And I try not to think about it because it's not a big deal, right? Because whatever's happening is already happening, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Y'all know my Capricorn moon and my Scorpio third house hates crying on this podcast, but it's a lot because the soonest he would see me is the 30th of December. And that is when he will be giving me my test results, good, bad, or otherwise. But either way, 2 days after that, I lose my insurance. So I was trying to hurry because anything I can get covered before the 31st would be beneficial, even if it's a doctor's appointment to give me results. But it's so annoying that I feel like everybody purposely drags their feet because it's like, well, and I understand, again, understaffed, but it's just like the insurances take so much, including time. And with something important, and this goes for everyone's story, not just mine, with something important, whether you're losing your insurance or not, time is important, right? Time to me is my most valuable thing. Time is absolutely my most valuable thing. I was raised to value time, and yeah, so that's where I'm at. I have my appointment on the 22nd. I am hoping that I can convince somebody to read results to my doctor before that. I'm hoping that my doctor got my 3 different messages that I've left for him to call me before he leaves for Christmas vacation, because I checked and he is working on the 24th. That's where we're at. And it's not just me, right? As many of you know through sharing my journey of how I got here, both of my kids are on the spectrum. Both of them need therapy. Both of them have medicine. That's just where we're at. I know that this year, astrologically, is massive for my business. I know that this year, astrologically, is so beautiful for everyone. New starts, new opportunities, just done with the fucking algorithms and wanting community. And I know that all of my offerings are centered around that. I am talking beautiful, getting out of the algorithm and into community that you choose kind of energy. But for the meantime, I'm doing my 2026 readings. I have my sun memberships, my moon memberships, and that is helping me create more stable income for my family, which I am always so grateful. And honestly, I love working with y'all one on one like that. But I'm so grateful for those opportunities because they allow me to not only provide the life I have, but obviously I've been saving the last few months, and thankfully so that's where we're at. Insurance is hard, but yeah, we're figuring out ways. We're keeping it moving, and that's just where we're at for now. But as I was going through all of this, I'm also, writing the script for the podcast because sometimes I get so frustrated with myself when I'm in the in between, because sometimes the deeper I commit to being honest in my messaging and how I speak to y'all, the quieter I kind of get, which is why it's taken me 2 weeks to write this episode. For me, Scorpio rules my third house of communication, which means my voice doesn't come out in real time when it's so raw. I mean, I'm sure I'll edit it out, but there was about, a good minute and a half because I'm still a Capricorn moon. I only shed a tear, but it's very hard for me to talk. My voice completely shuts down. If you listen to the last episode about, visibility being a spiritual practice, like it is physically impossible for me to talk at times when that Scorpio third house gets activated. So, with like basically what that means is my voice doesn't come out in real time when it's raw. It goes into its deep cave. Legit, sometimes when big shit hits me, I can't even talk if I tried. It gets very quiet, very heavy, very internal, and it forces me to transmute that really deep, raw Scorpio energy in order or in an effort to help me verbalize. And the ruler of my third house, Pluto, is also sitting in Scorpio, but it's kind of positioned in my second house of self-worth and survival. So, yeah, when life's hitting the fucking fan or when I'm very stressed and for whatever reason, my voice tends to not get louder. It disappears into the underworld for safekeeping. I become Persephone going into my cave. My family, specifically my mom, but my family knows that if I am not communicating with them, I'm normally a call, at least like 2-3 times a week. I'm not like my brother who calls her every day. I'm like a couple times a week. Okay. But if I don't call and if I'm not communicating, it is because I am going through shit. And that it's the only way I really know how to process, if I'm being real. And it is also a process that I am rebuilding. And I think that, with this podcast, that a lot of it has to do with this because, yes, I'm very raw and upfront in my readings, but that's a very small percentage of y'all that get to see that side of me. And so with this podcast, that was kind of part of this reprogramming. I remember being young and bullied. Again, I'm 6'4". My appearance has always been different than others. And at least, when I was in school, it wasn't really celebrated to be different. Anyway, I would be so mad at myself when my voice would ditch me in the moment because I am very snarky and honestly, I'm funny. And I always have a comeback. But when I was younger, it was like my voice would never fucking work in those moments. So it was a lot, which is why, again, this episode took a minute to write. I had to come back into myself after rebuilding before I could speak about this. And honestly, up until I pulled that King of Cups card, I wasn't sure if I was even going to talk about it because at the end of the day, I don't have answers to give. I just can tell you where I am on my path. And sometimes that is just as important, being on my path and knowing that every step is going to lead to a success in some way or another in my life. Even if the path isn't clear, I know it's going to lead to the success. And so that's really what this episode is. It's not, a very polished, like, look at me, look at how successful I am. It's definitely not anything related to business so much other than, again, my voice is my brand. And so I just kind of needed and thought y'all might too, a real-time record of what it looks like to re-self. Sure. I don't think that's a word, but we'll go with it. It's not a rebrand of me. It's a moment to, and now I say this with intention because I don't want to be known for only seeing curated parts of me that survive the fallouts and, being in some sort of financial positions or, having infidelity or having a sick kid. I don't want the curated after the storm versions. I want to also be known for parts I resurrect after I stop hiding and looking put together. I was thinking about when I cried in front of my daughter for the first time, even. I was sad. Honestly, I was sad. And she had seen me upset and do my Capricorn signature one tear falling from my eye and then I brush it off. But I mean, like, I was in front of her sobbing. I think she was like 10 or 11. And I look back at that and I feel bad because I realized I was kind of perpetuating this cycle. When I was growing up, my mom would be very vulnerable with my friends that were going through it, but she never shared those experiences with me. To me, my mom was always put together. There was nothing that bothered her. Everything was fine. And so it did not really allow me to see an example of, like, not that I needed her to crash out, but like, not being a superwoman once in a while would have been a really great reflection, to let me know that it's okay to be upset, that it's okay to be mad, that I basically was getting the cleaning room version. And here I was, as I'm reflecting on this, creating a cleaning room version of me for her. And she deserves better. She deserves knowing that it's okay to be upset. She deserves understanding that confrontation is not a big deal. Confrontation is so necessary. And 10, 11 in the scope of things is not so bad, but she deserved and still deserves to know that life is hard and emotions are okay. Being vulnerable is okay. And since then, I've been learning that a lot on my own journey too, as I've gone through hard shit in life. And after I learned that I was safe enough to be messy privately, thanks to Aaron, and cry and feel, I began testing out what else I was safe enough to do. Be my weird self? Sure, definitely that. Sharing my stories on a podcast. Here you are. And the last few months, I have been rewriting my brand voice because my body now feels safe enough to metabolize the emotions that I really hadn't touched in years. Grief from infidelity, grief from being stolen, things stolen from me, my business stolen from me in the shadows, grief from pretending I was fine so I wouldn't lose my reputation of being on top of everything and like this super Virgo. Again, Scorpio rules in the third for me. And so it had me whispering very polished versions of my journey, of setbacks, but in a public way. You kind of got to be Persephone a little bit and go to the depths before you can emerge this evolved version of self. And my voice, I found through introspection over the last year, was not matching my developing story, my reality for a very long time. And that mismatch is what I'm correcting now. And I feel like it's a beautiful way to correct over the last few months, specifically focusing on my voice. But as I enter 2026 as well, because this is a 1 year, this is a brand new year, new starts, expansion. Last year was the snake and shedding. This is the horse. We are full steam ahead. And if this is something that interests you, just, if you're listening, you're like, bitch, I got to figure this out. I am doing an in-person class at Deja Vu Esoterica on January 10th. I believe it is called The Year You Choose You, because, clever titles are always fun. But it is an astrology and numerology course. I'm talking about your upcoming transits. I'm telling you why they're fucking important, what the dates are, so that way you can plan big things that you have in your life, your big goals, your big visions, your voice around those dates as well. So anyway, we're trying to match the voice to our reality. And I unlocked a lot of where my voice should be, because how do I even know in the moment when you're rebuilding like what it should be? And I did that by looking at my chart. My fourth house, my sense of home, my upbringing, my safety from the storms outside is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter for me is in Aquarius in the 6th house. And if that is confusing for you because you're a beginner, all zodiac signs are ruled by planets, sometimes two. I have talked about it before, but my 4th house is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. In my chart, Jupiter is in my 6th house, okay? The zodiac sign that rules over the 6th house is Aquarius. So, of course, my version of home hasn't really ever been cozy and clean. It's been pretty punk, pretty rebellious, lived out in real time. And I know I teach people how to come home into their true selves in that rebellious way, through the body, through the chart, through remembering what came before all this performance capitalist bullshit for the sake of what they should do. I love working with women over 40 because we were all told what we should do. It was ingrained in us. Well, you should go to college. You should be blank. You should do blank, whatever it is. There is so much pressure with so much should bullshit that wasn't even our original direction. But past just knowing Jupiter in my 6th house is that Jupiter is quincunx. That would be one of those aspects I was talking about earlier that would be in red. And it's not so comfy cozy, okay? But it quincunx my Mars, my fire, in Scorpio. It quincunx to my Mars in Virgo in the 12th house, which means I often don't expand until I'm broken into pieces. And bitch, is that not just the most unfortunate thing? I have to be burnt to the ground in order to rise like a phoenix. It is not my favorite. And certainly not until I've sat with my rage behind closed doors. You know, that is a must for me. So people that know me and know me well know that if I'm bringing it up, I've already made up my mind. You know, once I wanted to break up with somebody I was seeing and I pitched it to my daughter's dad, like, hey, what do you think? And obviously he is never, if you know him, he is not going to give his 2 cents on anything. But it was just funny because he was like, well, if you're talking to me about it, you're already going to do it. And I was like, facts. I think the reason why, or not, I know the reason why is because of this placement. I've transmuted betrayals into being of service, but now I've healed through that. Now that I have taken those steps, now I speak about it because that's the crossroads I kind of live every day. How do I stay soft in this life where I can be just my most beautiful soft girl era self again? Thank you, Erin, for providing that safe space at home, right? But also in my business. But remember, to me, they're kind of the same. So the world may be racing backwards in time. You know, we're losing rights left and right. We're losing insurance. It would not surprise me if we as women lose our ability to have our own bank account, or at least they will make it so astronomically insane that, you know, there will need to be some sort of legislation around it. We're just racing backwards in some way. And I know I kind of touched on it last episode of how do I speak the most real shit when all I want to do is disappear. And I try to help clients staring down at the same crossroads. And true, they don't always own a business and certainly don't care about branding from a business perspective like I've been doing lately, but they're still in this with me because what's happening collectively right now isn't about branding. It's about identity. It's about this unique grief that we are all feeling collectively of outgrowing a version of you without a ceremonial ritual to mark this shift. And that's why I wanted to hit on here today what it means to re-self in a very public way. How our persona era is dying in real time. I mean, look at the downfall of curated influencers, you know, and celebrities, right? These were elite brand sources, you know, these were, even look at what happened with these designer handbags. It was actually my favorite. I think it was August, maybe September. I don't know. I can't really remember when, but they're on TikTok, they were showing where they got all of their supplies, and it wasn't from the elite places they were claiming it was. It was from discount places, and capitalism was like, oh, just upsell it for 3,000%, right? This is watching personas and fake ass shit die in real time, and I am here for it. But I also wanted to talk about why so many of us are scared to talk without it being the polished version of ourselves. What spiritual visibility can look like when we're not just showing up. What spiritual visibility can look like when we are just showing up with honesty. And you're not just trying to be seen. You're not just trying to, in the early 2000s, people would go places in Southern California and LA and stuff because you wanted to be seen in the photos in the back, like nobody in 2026, like that is so far gone. And it happens almost immediately. You will feel this massive push, let's say January 18th-ish or around that time. Okay. Massive push of like, this is bullshit. I am not moving forward in this way. I need something now. And this is very important because we have to kind of say it out loud and name it. I am deeply neurodivergently tired of pretending I'm okay with being on all the time. I was in a parade like a week ago or whatever. And after I was on for a few hours, I flatlined for days. I mean, that was probably the most tired I've been in years. And it had nothing to do with the fact that I walked a mile or whatever. I'm used to masking, and even masking and joy and fun has a balance to pay at some point. And I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So then I would go above and beyond. Up until the last 3 years, I would go above and beyond masking and hiding and going behind the scenes. Because while the powers that be crack down and censorship is fucking rising like crazy, being visible as my full self-awkward, emotional, witchy, messy at times resistance as a form of protest self is so important. If I could, I'd start a cool hardcore band and like rage into that kind of musical aspect to transmute the hate and the racism that is palpable in our daily lives. The music to me, or in my opinion, I should say, that comes out of oppressive times tends to stand the test of time, right? However, this is a big old however, I can only play the banjo, sorta, if that. So instead, I'm using my voice to teach ancient, hear me, pre-capitalist ways of helping people merge the gap between the old lady healer of the woods and your apartment in Queens or Los Feliz or any sort of like suburban and urban culture. The concrete, shall I say. So through herbalism and medical astrology, I'm showing people there is more than robots and algorithm to see what's happening now and how to predict imbalances that are coming up in the future. I think a lot of people are like, cool, but it's 2026. Does that even matter anymore? But then they see medical astrology post of mine, or maybe they hear that I talked to a client who explains that I could look at their chart and see their hip pain, and that I gave verbal recommendations that are more affordable and accessible than medication and copays and doctor's visits. That is how I show up with the same intensity for change as I would in a punk band making cool anti-establishment music. And we are learning more about the ancient ways here on this podcast. If you've taken courses with me, I'm just letting y'all know 2026, so much information for y'all. But I'm teaching these things because I want you to take it and to apply it in the way that you fight in your own unique way too. So if you're clicking on this for like another neat content strategy plan, I'm sorry that that's not what you found. But if you are in the middle of, like I am, in the middle, not knowing how to share your voice without making it a job, or wondering how to show up in a space without feeling like you have to throw on a mask or be a different persona, or navigating a transition where your identity is outgrowing your life and you have no idea what's next what the version of you that is next looks like yet. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I'm glad, because I'm sure you're enjoying this episode, because this is your call. I'll be your catalyst, right? To tell you that this is you reselfing. If you want to talk about it more, I do have virtual and in-person astrology readings, and I can look at your chart. But I personally feel like the 2026 year ahead forecast reading is a great option to see all the transformations ahead of you. If you just want to schlep and listen to this podcast and kind of learn in little microdoses along the way, great. Again, I have a massively cool offering coming in 2026 that I think would be super beneficial for everyone kind of in the middle of the versions, that frustrating middle portion of where we're going and who we've been. But yeah, it's just a time that we can talk about you. So I would love to know in the comments below if you feel like you're in this middle version. You have acknowledged that what you were told you should do is bullshit, and you are ready to embrace what you want to be doing. However, you might not know how, why, when. How do we pay the bills? That's normally a big one of people not going for what they love and what their dreams are. But let me be the first to try to convince you, because the minute I left my safe job and started chasing after my actual opportunity that I was given per my birth chart, I made more money than I could ever fucking imagine that I would be making. And now that I know that that's even possible, bitch, watch out, because I'm unstoppable. And it's not just about money to me. For me, my most valuable possession is time. And the more time I get, the better. This week, obviously, per the beginning of the episode, y'all know it was a hard week. I was able to take the time in between clients to walk down the street to the basketball courts and play basketball with my kids for a minute. I was able to go on a long ass 4-mile hike the day before that, per my schedule. So yeah, maybe I'm not rolling in dough so I can pay $2,400 a month in insurance, but I got time, and I got time with my kids when they're at this very valuable stage where they don't need me to curate every fucking step and every outfit they wear, but they need me to bounce off their own ideas and their own inner reselfings, and that is such a beautiful and powerful time to be able to be accessible for them. So with that, before we end, let me pull a card. I felt like we needed a little softness today. So I am going to pull from the Love Who You Are Oracle deck. This is a really beautiful deck that I got from my friend Rose at the Stinking Rose. If you've not been, it's on the northeast side of town of San Antonio. It is a beautiful high gloss deck, but also in this, sides are gold foiled. It has a wonderful guidebook and also has a beautiful box. And I've said it once, I've said it a million times, I'm a hoe for a good box. So let me shuffle one more time and let's pick our card. Oh my God. Okay, so I've used this deck, I think one other time in our session together. There's probably 50 plus cards here. I don't actually know, but I pulled the same card that I did last time. I've probably only used this deck twice this year, and I pulled the same card twice. Okay, so let's look at number 15. Wear your party hat, because I don't even remember what it has to do with. It says, life's too short. Buy the shoes, eat the cookie, take the vacation, risk the adventure. Paint your living room purple, wear your party hat. Don't be afraid of what people will think. They aren't even living your life. You get to decide what brave looks like, what your fun and fabulous and free look like. You're being asked right now to disregard the attention and approval of others and go for it, even if it feels extra ridiculous or over the top. You get to be seen as extra. You get to be seen as extra as you would like. Your life is an occasion. Rise to it. And this is like the end of spring in this book. It says, summer is coming. It's time to lose some weight. My advice, start shedding the pounds, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But then it goes into toss off anything that no longer fits. Now, it also says you want to lighten up, then light the hell up. Your smile, your dreams, your joys. So I don't really know about this middle because, again, I don't really read the guidebooks that much. But when I pulled this last time, it was about being your own unique self, as weird as you want to be. And I'll tell you, I know I'm weird, but I'm like super embodying that for 2026. I've been inspired lately by different fashions, and I'm like, yes, I want to be. No, when I was teaching, I wanted to be Miss Frizzle, so I would make skirts that had to do with the themes that I was teaching that week, and it was like my favorite thing in the world. But I feel like now I'm in my weird art teacher era where I just want to like compile clothes to be walking texture art. But being your weird self when you're on that journey, it's like, oh, I want the whole closet full of the weird art teacher items, but then, we can only do a piece at a time, a collection at a time. I think this does speak to being in the middle of everything and what we should be doing next. So, with that said, I hope I see you soon. I have a special for December. It is $20 readings. We're doing 7 minutes. I say 7 minutes with the stars. If you want to say 7 minutes in heaven, fine, but we're not going to make out. Okay. But it is $20. And we can talk about anything. If you're on the go and you're like, bitch, I don't have time for an hour-long reading, go ahead and do that. I recently had a reading with somebody and they were like, oh my God, that was phenomenal. And with every reading, I send a feedback form. And I'll be honest, I've only gotten one bad feedback, and it was something that I did my best to be on point in the moment, and it had nothing to do with the reading itself. So there's that. But all the rest have been fabulous, and I love to have feedback. And my most recent feedback was that they wished that they did the virtual astrology reading. And I love virtual astrology readings. One, it helps me meet anybody who's out there, right? I have people I read for pretty consistently in Jamaica, in Spain, in Italy. Those are like my main parts, in England as well. But a couple in Mexico, sure. I was trying to think of everything on the fly. But you also get to keep the recording as long as the internet doesn't eat it, of course. But sometimes when I'm talking about all these things, I'm aware that I talk about a lot of really dense topics. And as light as I try to make it, it makes it so that way I talk about a lot of different aspects because I'm taking one dense thing and breaking it up into lots of different parts. Well, then that sometimes leaves you with a little too much information. And yes, we can try to grab and take in the moment, but that's why virtual readings are so cool. And my 2026 year ahead readings, it's the 2026 year ahead forecast astrology reading. I know that's lots of words, but if you put 2026, you'll see a picture of me. I think I'm like at a tree or something like that. But you can book that and I will go over your entire year. And not only do you get the recording, I also made a PDF style, not workbook, but reference book. So that way you can reference back to all your dates in 2026 as well. So that is something new they have never offered before, so I would definitely jump on that option. Okay, that is it. I hope you have a wonderful week. I should be putting out an episode next week as well. These will definitely get more regular. It's just with the holidays, it's a little weird, but as long as you hit subscribe, you'll always be notified when I have my next readings or opportunities to just listen to the podcast and have some fun with me. With that, me and my weird self say have a great week, and I'll see you soon.